All right. How's it going, everybody? So, what does this sword and a railroad track have in common? Let's find out. Since I started this new series of steel for swords and knives, I figured we'll get into this steel, manganese steel, because I know a few people are on the fence on it, about it. What really is it? So that's what this one's going to be about today. Since it's a nice day out here, we decided to shoot outside, so hopefully you all enjoy it. So, manganese steel. First, let's go back in history a little bit to the Industrial Revolution. During that time, they were looking for steel that was extremely wear resistant because they were having issues with machinery wearing out too quickly. So what they did was they decided to develop a new type of steel, hence manganese. Now, at first, manganese wasn't doing too well. It still was acting like all other steel. Until, in 1882, a man named Sir Richard Hadfield decided to take and combine about 60 to 70% carbon and anywhere from 13 to 14% manganese steel. Combine the two together. What it created was what is now known also as Hadfield steel. Now, Hadfield steel and manganese steel like this are two separate things. They're still manganese, but they have different properties, kind of. Now, manganese steel or Hadfield steel is a work-hardened steel. So basically, this is cold worked. Okay, what they call cold worked. And then it is quenched and tempered. Now the beauty of manganese steel is, it's kind of like when you take the top layer off, the next layer underneath starts to get hard. It's like peeling an onion. If you peel the top layer off, you have another layer underneath. That's kind of how manganese steel works. It works when it gets any type of wear or abuse that's going to take the top layer off, that bottom layer automatically starts getting hard again. That's the beauty of manganese steel. In fact, how many times do you see people replace railroad tracks? You hardly ever see them do it. The reason being is because that is Hadfield steel. Hadfield steel will last you almost a lifetime or longer, because you take that top layer off, that bottom layer starts getting hard again. So now that we kind of know the history of manganese steel and where it comes from, what's this technically then? Because this is not Hadfield steel. So this, like I said, is manganese steel, but it's in a different form. Now, if you look online, when it comes to swords like this, because this is manganese steel, people will say, it's just 1066, it's not manganese steel. That's where they're wrong. See, China wanted a different type of steel that they could work with that was a little bit easier than manganese steel, but still keep it manganese. So what they did was they developed another form of manganese steel in about the early 2000s, kind of. The patent shows up in about 2009, 2010. And what they did was they needed something, like I said, it was a little bit easier to work with and not as hard, but it's still going to have the same properties. So they took the elements of 1065, okay? So it has anywhere from 60 to 0.6 to 0.7 carbon, but then they took manganese anywhere from 0.13 to 1.0 manganese, so it has a higher content now of manganese in it, and developed another form of it. Now, believe it or not, your car has this type of manganese steel in it. It's called 65Mn. It has a more spring to it effect. Regular manganese, like Hadfield, doesn't. 65Mn does. So that's what this is, the 65Mn. Well, knife and sword makers figured out, hey, that would be a great thing to use for swords and knives. So they started experimenting with it. And, well, obviously it works. And it works extremely well. In fact, if you're a beginner cutter, either I always said 9260 or 1060 blade is great for a beginner. So if you do a back cut, it's not going to ruin your life. But manganese 65Mn is another great choice for you to use because this stuff is almost virtually indestructible. Now, this is a mono steel, of course. Now, the beauty of manganese steel, like 65Mn, is you can differentially harden it. Unlike 5160, you can't. Any spring steel that you have, you cannot differentially harden it. But with this, you can. Let's think of 65Mn as 1065 crossed between 5160. And this is what you get right here, is 65Mn. Now, it's still classified as manganese steel because of the content of it. But that's basically what they did, is they took those two and combined it together to make a more durable, more easier steel to work with, and more elasticy. So your car, pretty much, its springs in it is this stuff right here, 65Mn. Okay, especially if your car comes from overseas, it's probably got this in it. This stuff is almost virtually indestructible. Can you break a 65Mn blade? Yes, you can. But it's going to take a lot to do it. You can bend these to a 90 and they'll go right back. No problem whatsoever. Kind of like 5160 and 9260 steel. So, is it worth getting a sword made out of this stuff? Absolutely. Now, like I said, if you go on Reddit, people will say, oh, it's just 1066. This is where they get confused. And they're not actually looking up why it's 1066. In the United States, we classify this 65Mn manganese steel as 1066. That's why they're saying it's 1066. It's not 1066. It's 65Mn. Okay, we just decided to classify it differently because China has a different classification from us. And then some people will say, oh, it's just 1065. 1065 is not a spring steel. Okay? This is a spring steel. But it's just a lot tougher. So yeah, you could say it's 1065 and 5160 on steroids. And what makes it so tough is that manganese. Now, let's get into the pros and cons of this. Since this is a mono steel, you're going to have to maintain the edge a lot more than a differentially hardened steel. Okay? Like I said, you can differentially harden this. There is a drawback to it though. And that drawback is if you do a bad cut, it will roll the edge. It's not going to chip it. Like I said, this stuff is durable as hell. It's hard to break. But you will roll it. But since it's got that hardening property, because it's considered a work hardening steel, it's going to take you a little bit longer to take that roll out. Okay. Now, people would think, how come we just don't Why don't they just make it out of Hadfield steel, straight Hadfield steel? If they made this out of straight Hadfield steel, you would never be able to put an edge on it. And people go, well, I could take it to a belt grinder, which would be the worst thing that you could do. Hadfield steel, any type of manganese steel, does not like heat. You will destroy the tempering right away on it. So would I take a belt grinder to this and sharpen it? No, I wouldn't. It's not advised. Like I said, any type of heat to manganese, it does not like, and you will destroy the tempering on this. It's best to hand sharpen it, okay? Because you're not going to create a lot of friction and heat on there, like a belt grinder. If you do, it better have a water source running on it. But don't use it. This is my personal saying. Don't use a belt grinder on these. Hand sharpen it. Learn how to do it, okay? So that is the drawback. You have to maintain the edge a lot more. People say it's a stainless. This is not a stainless blade. Even though it has some properties that would be in stainless, this is not stainless. It is a carbon blade, and it will rust, and you do have to maintain it. So now with it being manganese and having that work hardening capability, it will take you a little bit longer to sharpen even a mono steel like 65 MN. But it will hold that edge. It's going to hold the edge as long as a mono steel 1065. But that's why a lot of times you won't see these differentially hardened, even though you can, because of that property. It can roll, the edge can roll, and then it's a bear to take out. So they just do mono on them. But if you're a beginner and you're like, well, what is manganese steel? You know, and you've read on Reddit, oh, it's just this and that. It's a durable blade. And no, it's not 1066. It's just what we here in the US classify as 1066. This is 65 MN. They do have a 65M. Mainly, it's pretty much the same thing as this. 65 MN. So that is what manganese steel is. So if people who are like, I'm kind of questionable about it, I don't know really what it is, this is what it is. It's a very tough and durable, what some people will call a super steel. It's just a lot of people don't know about it and what it does. It is a work hardening steel. Like I said, any type of abuse you put on it, you take that top layer off, that bottom layer automatically starts getting hard again. That's the beauty of this stuff. It just naturally will do it because the way it's combined. We have a shot blast machine, since I work in a foundry. It's kind of like a blast cabinet, media cabinet, except it shoots metal BBs out to clean the castings. And to put it in perspective how much this stuff resists it, we have discs in it that are about 36 inches in diameter and about a ½ inch thick. Those were put in 1998. Now in 2026, they're still 36 inches in diameter and a ½ inch thick. That's how resistant to abuse this stuff is. Okay, so it hasn't even wore it down. And that machine runs 8 hours a day almost. So yeah, manganese steel, it's pretty impressive stuff. Is it like the all be to end all? No, it's not. Like I said, you have to maintain this a little bit more than T10, 1095. But believe it or not, this stuff is stronger than a T10 blade. A T10 blade will snap in half quicker than this stuff will. This stuff will take a beating like you won't believe. So, like I said, if you're on the fence, you want to try one out, you're not sure, go for it. This thing is nice. I love that my wife got me my first European for my birthday. I'm having fun with it. I do have to put a little bit more of an edge on it. Like I said, they kind of messed up. They did like one side, but not the opposite side on these. So I have to hone it. But other than that, I have not had any issues with this thing. So if you're a new beginner, you're looking for something that it's not going to break the bank, but you know if you do an extremely bad cut, you're not out the money, this is another option. Manganese steel, okay? Either this or 9260. 9260s are pretty inexpensive, but so are these. So, and you can get Europeans. I've noticed a lot of Europeans from China are made out of 65 MN and or 9260. So they also do it in katana, which brings me to another fact of this stuff. The reason why, and a lot of new outfits, sword makers from China, Longquin, will use 65 MN, is because it's very inexpensive for them to get. In fact, it's cheaper than T10 for them to get this stuff than T10. So, yeah, it's not by much, but if you don't have a lot of money and you want to get going, you're going to go with what you can afford. So a lot of times they'll do 65 MN and T10 blades first. But yeah, this will outlast a T10 blade for sure. That is so resilient. So hopefully you guys find this video informative, and we'll see you on the next one.